So I think the whole blockchain thing, it's got kind of two different objectives. Well, three. One is to sort of be a way to create weird money like Bitcoin, but let's leave that aside for a minute. And the first sort of use case is a lot about sort of optimization of processes. And you'll see a lot of existing businesses, corporates, sort of work together, and how can we create optimization of processes by setting up blockchain networks amongst ourselves in order so we don't have to trust each other we don't have to spend that much money on trusting each other. We could use blockchains to execute business logic, or we could lower the cost of keeping each other accountable and auditing. That's one use case. That's which is really interesting from a corporate point of view. It has a return on investment. Supermarkets are using it for supply chain and making sure that they can track where all their food comes from. And apparently people buy blockchain chicken more than non-blockchain chicken. It's interesting. But I always say blockchain wasn't invented to optimize business processes. Blockchain was invented because of something weird like Bitcoin, whatever you think of it. The blockchain was invented to really kick up a storm and kick the world up its arse and see, can we do things differently? So the other kind of objective of blockchain, not so much blockchain, we call it Web3 these days, is to actually challenge the added value that a lot of companies have had taken for granted now, like banks and Facebooks and whatever, these monopolies. Actually challenge them and say, can we do things differently if we use blockchain? And actually, can we decentralize some of those functions that they've had and create what they call Web3, more like a web that's more about fair value distribution and data privacy and creating value together, which all sounds very optimistic. It's super difficult, but that's the objective of a lot of the blockchain projects. It's extremely difficult. It's gonna take much longer than a believer like me initially thought. But if these companies and techies and developers and innovators succeed, then the impact will be extremely big, and the impact will change how we do business together, how we exchange value together. What I often do is especially when I have a chance to speak in front of a venue or a room of people, I do a role play with an orange. And I actually say, listen, I'm going to do a big transaction of an orange, of something of value to one person, and I give the orange to you. And then I say, we've just played blockchain. Because the point is that the whole room has seen this transaction, they've witnessed it, and they've used software to store it. And that's basically what the blockchain does. It's like a shared way to witness some transaction and actually store it for eternity. As people, we're not very good at storing stuff as eternities, but these computers are, because there are certain cryptographic codes written into it. That's boring, but the idea is not so much transparency, but the traceability of, yes, something happened. That's basically what a blockchain is. What is value? Yeah, I think it's really interesting, and it's probably touching upon a lot of the core concepts of this. What I think Web3 thinking is challenging. I mean, we always say, value, we can express it in euros in this case, or in dollars, etc. Oh, when we can't do Bitcoin, there's nothing behind it. Well, behind the euros, there's no gold reserve anymore anyway. So I once read a book about, or a presentation about what is money, and money is an agreement. It's an agreement that we all value something to a certain extent to actually exchange goods or services, and we value that in a certain amount of what we call currency. It could be anything. And there are the more philosophical angle of this blockchain people. They say, well, value is becoming reputation, right? Reputation is a value. And if it can be somehow tracked, or you can build it in some blockchain application, then it becomes even more valuable, because it's proven to be traceable, and you can actually prove that you have a certain reputation. So I always say blockchains, the purest sense of blockchains is that they are very good at enabling parties, it could be people, but it could be machines, it could be businesses, to exchange value, whatever that is. It could be data, it could be money, it could be reputation, it could be proof of origin or proof of ownership. So it could be whatever these parties agree that is valuable. So it's a very philosophical question, but I think the blockchains, the way they are set up to exchange that value without having to rely on third parties, fits into that story quite well.